From Mondstadt to Natlin, I've cooked up a DPS tier list hotter than Pyro Archon. I can't help in your gacha luck, but with these full build guides, I can definitely help your damage. Starting off at number 15, we've got Clorinde, a sleek on-field electro DPS who brings a unique mechanic into the mix with her bond of life. Her strength lies in her fast-paced combat style, which lets her stay mobile with her augmented elemental skill while dishing out consistent electro damage. She's great for quick electro application, self-sustain, and building flexible teams, especially since her healing from Impale the Knight allows you to stack buffers without worrying about her survival. Now, her best build revolves around the Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy artifact set, which perfectly matches her Bond of Life gimmick. If you're going for an aggravate setup, Thundering Fury becomes a strong alternative, especially when you're trying to cycle her elemental skill as often as possible. For standard builds, you want to run Attack Cess or Elemental Mastery on Sands depending on your reaction type, Electro Damage bonus on Goblet, and Crit Rate or Crit Damage on Circlet. Substats should focus on Crit Rate, Crit Damage, Energy Recharge, and Attack. As for her weapon, Absolution is her best in slot, not only because it boosts crit damage, but also because it synergizes beautifully with her Bond of Life, scaling up her damage significantly. If you don't have Absolution, Haran Geppaku Futsu and Primordial Jade Cutter are great alternatives, thanks to their crit stats and consistent output. The Black Sword is a strong 4-star option, giving her both crit rate and healing, while Finale of the Deep stands out as her F2P friendly weapon with decent attack scaling and Bond of Life synergy. For talent priority, focus on leveling her elemental skill first, since that's where most of her damage comes from, then her burst, and finally her normal attack. While her skill counts as normal attack damage, the actual scaling and impact are rooted in the skill talent level, so you can skip leveling her normals if you want. Coming in at number 14 is Writhersley, the suave cryo catalyst user who plays like a boxer with gloves made of ice. His damage comes from a relentless barrage of normal attacks, making him a unique cryo DPS option who doesn't rely too heavily on elemental skill or burst cooldowns. His cryo infusion from Icefang Rush lets him trigger freeze, melt, or even function as a standalone carry depending on your team. While his AoE is a bit limited and he lacks crowd control, his raw damage and self-healing capabilities give him excellent sustain during extended combat. For artifacts, Marechaussee Hunter is hands down the best set because Writhersley constantly loses and regains HP, triggering the set's crit rate bonus consistently. You'll want Attack Ascent on Sands, Cryo Damage on Goblet, and Crit Damage on Circlet to maximize his damage, and substats should push crit damage and attack above all else, with some Energy Recharge or EM if you're running Melt. For weapons, Cashflow Supervision is his best in slot thanks to the crit damage boost and synergy with his kit. Tulai Tular's Remembrance also performs extremely well if you've got the crit stats to support it. For a 4-star weapon, the Widsith is surprisingly effective, giving him massive bursts of damage depending on which buff it rolls. If you're looking for a craftable or F2P option, Flowing Purity is a decent stand-in, though you'll need to manage your rotations more carefully to get the most out of it. Whether you're freezing enemies in place or going full brawler mode, Writhersley is a strong pick when built properly with a clear focus on crit and cryo scaling. At number 13, we have Raiden Shogun, the Electro Archon who doubles as both a powerful main DPS and a battery for your entire team. What makes her stand out is how her damage scales with Energy Recharge, meaning the more ER you stack, the harder she hits. Her Elemental Burst is still one of the most satisfying ultimates in the game, slicing through enemies with clean purple lightning while restoring energy to the entire squad. Her elemental skill sticks around Ven when she's off-field, constantly applying Electro and boosting the whole team's burst damage, especially deadly in Hyper Bloom teams. If you've unlocked her C2, congratulations, she turns into an absolute monster, but she's not perfect. Her burst doesn't synergize with some characters like Beidou, and she really needs proper team setups to shine at her full potential. For builds, Engulfing Lightning is her best weapon hands down, especially when paired with a full emblem of Severed Fate set. Stack Energy Recharge around 200–250%, and her damage will spike like crazy. If you're F2P, the catch is surprisingly close in performance and easy to get. If you're going for a Hyper Bloom sub DPS route, build her full Elemental Mastery with weapons like Dragon's Bane or Katane Cross Spear, and use Flower of Paradise Lost or Gilded Dreams to boost those reaction numbers. She won't deal big personal damage, but the Dendro reactions will absolutely melt enemies. Whether you build her for team support, main carry, or reaction-based sub-DPS, Raiden remains one of the most versatile and powerful Electro characters in the game. Just make sure you pair her with the right teammates, and once her burst goes off, watch everything disappear in a flash of purple. Garming at number 12. Yeah, I know, you're thinking a 4-star, but hear me out. This guy punches way above his weight. Garming's one of the rare 4-stars with base scaling that actually holds up against 5 stars. And when I say scaling, I mean real damage numbers. His elemental skill is also super satisfying. Rush in, plunge down, boom, and it aligns perfectly for triggering reactions like vaporize, melt, or burgeon. And here's the kicker, he heals himself while attacking. No joke. That means you can run Marishasei Hunter without depending on Furina. And if you manage to pull him to C6, he's not just competitive, he's scary. But it's not all perfect. Without his burst, he has no pyro infusion, so his regular attacks won't hit like you want them to. And if his skill misses, no plunge, no damage, just an awkward mid-air moment. Still, for someone that's easier to build, Marishasei Hunter is a great starting set. Just stack crit and some EM, and you're good. Now, if you want to go full reaction mode, Crimson Witch of Flames is even better, if you can balance the stats. But for Burgeon Garming, it's a different game. Full EM, Flower of Paradise Lost, and a weapon like Mailed Flower or even Rain Slasher can carry the load. Personally, I find him super fun. He feels fast, satisfying, and doesn't need a 5-star weapon to shine. He's one of the easiest 4-stars to build into a solid pyro DPS with legit team flexibility. Number 11 is Chaska, a unique Anemo DPS who thrives on flexibility and aerial dominance, thanks to her elemental skill that not only lifts her into the air, but also allows her to fire off elemental bullets that adapt to your team composition. This makes her viable with any reaction-based team involving pyro, hydro, electro, or cryo, and gives her a surprising edge in versatility. For a standard build, Obsidian Codex is the artifact set to aim for, offering massive crit rate and general offensive power, especially when paired with her signature weapon, Astral Vulture's Crimson Plumage. That combo delivers excellent charged attack performance, especially in mono-elemental teams. If you don't have Astral Vulture, Aqua Simulacra and the First Great Magic follow closely behind, while Scion of the Blazing Sun and Chainbreaker are good 4-star and F2P standings. For stats, lean into Attack Cess on the Sands and Goblet unless your team is leaning toward a specific reaction, in which case, Elemental Mastery or specific elemental damage goblets come into play. For Anemo Swirl builds, switch over to Viridescent Venera to reduce elemental resistance and amp up your swirl damage, and use weapons like Hunter's Path or Elegy for the End to stack more elemental mastery and reaction potential. As a talent priority, start with her elemental skill since it's her main damage engine, then invest in her burst to round out the rotation, while normal attacks can be left behind unless you're running some niche comp. Her biggest weaknesses lie in her single target focus and susceptibility to interruption, so shielders like Layla or Karara are ideal partners, especially if Zhongli's off limits due to her team restrictions. Number 10 is Line, the master of pyro sniping and Fontaine's premier charged attack specialist, whose power escalates with every pyro character on his team. His high damage scaling and unique Grin Malkin hat mechanic let him maintain strong pressure on the field, especially when using mono pyro comps. For Line's best build, the Marishasei Hunter set is a no-brainer thanks to its synergy with his passive healing and HP consumption, allowing you to push his crit damage to impressive levels while coasting on the set's innate crit rate boost. His best-in-slot weapon is the First Great Magic, perfectly tuned for his charged attack focus. But Aqua Simulacra and Thundering Pulse aren't far behind if you're after strong alternatives, with Scion of the Blazing Sun and Song of Stillness offering solid 4-star and F2P accessibility. Stick with Attack Cess on the Sands, pyro damage on the Goblet, and crit damage on the Circlet, while prioritizing substats like crit damage, energy recharge to keep your burst cycling, and some crit rate to round out the curve. If you're feeling adventurous, the Vermilion Hereafter set serves as a viable alternative by capitalizing on his self-damaging mechanics, though it requires burst timing to maximize uptime. Talent-wise, prioritize normal and charged attacks. First, since that's where all his damage comes from, followed by skill for detonation, and finally, his burst for bonus hat uptime. While Line does need a healer and shielder to function optimally, his raw damage potential and stylish gameplay make him one of the most fun and rewarding pyro DPS units in version 5.6. At number 9 is Hu Tower, the high-risk, high-reward pyro queen known for her absurd single-target damage and unmatched vaporize potential. Her playstyle revolves around maintaining low HP for maximum output, which means you'll always want to pair her with a strong shielder or healer unless you're confident in her elemental burst to carry you through. Her normal and charged attacks scale extremely well thanks to her HP to attack conversion, making her a menace against bosses, but she can struggle in AoE scenarios without the right setup. For builds, her absolute best artifact set is Crimson Witch of Flames, which enhances her vaporize and melt damage significantly. Run HP% on Sands, pyro damage on Goblet, and crit damage or rate on Circlet with substats focusing on crit, HP% and EM. Her best in slot weapon remains the Staff of Homer, but you can get excellent results with the Staff of the Scarlet Sands or Ballad of the Fjords. And for F2P players, Dragon's Bane is a fantastic 4-star alternative, while White Tassel works in a pinch. If farming Crimson Witch feels too grindy, Shimenawa's Reminiscence is a strong second option, offering a hefty boost to her normal and charged attacks, though you'll need energy recharge in substats to counter the cost of skill usage. For more recent teams involving Xianyun and Fiorina, Marechaussee Hunter shines by boosting crit rate and emphasizing plunging attacks when synergized with fast hydro application. Her talents should focus first on her normal attack and elemental skill equally, with her burst leveled up later for that clutch self-heal and burst damage finisher. Moving on to number 8, we have Alhaitham, the brilliant scribe of Sumeru, who brings elegant dendro chaos to the battlefield with rapid projection attacks and intense on-field reaction potential. His infusion can't be overridden. He applies dendro faster than most, and whether you're hitting single or multi-targets, he thrives when built right. His primary DPS build uses the Gilded Dreams set to stack elemental mastery and maximize spread reactions. Go with EM on Sands, dendro damage on Goblet, and crit on Circlet, balancing substats with crit, EM, ER, and some attack. For weapons, Light of Foliar Incision is his top choice by far, followed by Uraku Misugiri and Primordial Jade Cutter, while Wolf Fang and Iron Sting are great budget and F2P picks, especially Iron Sting for AoE situations. If no one on your team runs Deepwood Memories, then Alhaitham can equip it himself to shred dendro resistance, though he'll need higher energy recharge, around 160%, to maintain burst uptime. He demands good rotations and solid teammates to shine, and while he doesn't have interruption resistance, his damage ceiling is incredibly high. Focus first on his elemental skill, then normal attack, and burst to bring his full potential online. And for 4-star artifacts, Instructor remains a great early game option. At number 7 is Navia, the Geo DPS who breaks the mold with front-loaded elemental skill damage and an elegant synergy with the Crystallize reaction. Her kit is surprisingly beginner-friendly, yet rewards high investment in crit stats, especially when aiming for consistency with her double swing skill. Nighttime Whispers in the Echoing Woods is her ideal artifact set when paired with other elemental teammates, stacking attacks on Sands, Geo damage bonus on Goblet, and crit on Circlet with ER and attacks in substats. Her top weapon is the 5-star Verdict, tailored to her crystallized-centered gameplay, but Serpent Spine and the Unforged are excellent secondaries. And for F2P players, the Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword or Tidal Shadow. Both work well with her kit. If you run Fiorina, you can build Navia with Marechaussee Hunter to benefit from HP fluctuation mechanics, boosting her normal attacks and easing her crit needs. Alternatively, if you prefer a quick swap playstyle, Golden Troop or Archaic Petra mixes will still do wonders, especially when leaning into her burst damage. Her elemental skill should always be your top priority, whether she's your on-field carry or an off-field nuke, followed by normal attack or burst depending on your build. Navia's weapon flexibility, shield synergy, and solid AoE make her a surprisingly versatile DPS pick even in a crowded meta. At number 6 is Kinich, the Dendro DPS specialist whose front-loaded power makes him an absolute menace when built correctly. His Scale Spiker cannon scales incredibly well, and his elemental skill allows him to auto-target and evade, keeping up his damage without compromise. While his main damage comes in bursts and he thrives in reaction teams like Burning or Burgeon, the precision timing needed to get full value out of his Scale Spiker cannon can be punishing for unpracticed hands, and his mostly single-target kit demands either smart play or AoE support. For builds, Kinich's top-tier setup revolves around the Fang of the Mountain King, his signature weapon that boosts both skill and burst damage, but players can confidently replace it with Beacon of the Reed Sea, Serpent Spine, or the free-to-play Earthshaker if needed. Artifact-wise, Obsidian Codex is king, offering not just a flat damage bonus, but also stacking crit rate passively as you activate Night Soul effects, letting Kinich stack crit damage more aggressively in his stats. Unfinished Reverie is a great runner-up for burning comps, while Deepwood Memories mixed with Golden Troop is a viable fallback. In terms of main stats, prioritize attack cess on Sands, dendro damage on the Goblet, and crit rate or crit damage on the Circlet depending on your weapon. As for substats, go for crit damage, crit rate, attack cell, energy recharge, and elemental mastery. If you're running him in a Quicken or Hyperbloom build, Beacon of the Reed Sea, Fang of the Mountain King, and Mailed Flower all work, with artifact choices including 4-piece Gilded Dreams or the same Obsidian Codex. Kinich's talent priority starts with his elemental skill for loop shot and cannon damage, followed by his elemental burst for AoE flexibility, leaving normal attacks as the least critical. At number 5 is Mualani, a Hydro DPS powerhouse whose high HP scaling, mobility, and front-loaded damage makes her a perfect fit for Vaporize-based teams. Her Sharky's Bite ability lets her mark and amplify damage on opponents, while her skill lets her zip across watery terrain. Just don't miss your hit, because enemy movement can cause whiffs and reduce her damage ceiling. Her optimal build uses Surf's Up, her signature weapon that synergizes beautifully with her HP scaling kit. But if that's unavailable, Sacrificial Jade and Ring of Yakshi are strong 4-star alternatives. And even Tome of the Eternal Flow or 1,000 Floating Dreams can be slotted in with proper builds. Artifact-wise, 4-piece Obsidian Codex is again the best option due to its massive crit rate boost through Night Soul procs. But Heart of Depth is another excellent choice for consistency while farming. Main stats should focus on H% or Elemental Mastery Sands, Hydro Damage Goblet, and Crit Damage Circlet, with substats aiming for crit damage, H%, Elemental Mastery, Crit Rate, and ER. For players on a budget, the Ring of Yakshi and Ashgrave and Drinking Horn provide great free-to-play weapon options. When leveling talents, start with her elemental skill to maximize her main damage window, then her burst for backup AoE damage, and lastly her normal attacks, since most of her actual output is tied to enhanced states rather than standard string hits. Sliding into number 4 is Varesa, a plunging electro DPS who combines raw scaling with mobility to deliver devastating aerial strikes. I got a bunch of comments on my last video asking, why Navia over Varesa? And here's the deal, Navia is super easy to build, easy to play, fits into a bunch of teams, and her damage scaling actually nuts. But yes, Varesa is the better pure DPS, which is why she's ranked 4th while Navia sits at 7th. The twist, Navia doubles as a solid sub DPS and Varesa, not so much. So when I say strongest, I'm looking at overall value. Varesa wins in raw damage, but Navia's got the versatility. Alright, back to the tier list. Her whole kit is built around repeated plunges, and thanks to Night Soul transmission, she can freely reposition across any terrain. Her raw damage potential is high, but unlike Vaporize or Melt units, she lacks access to reaction-based amplifiers, and her weapon options are somewhat limited outside of her signature catalyst. Vivid Notions is built specifically for her kit and leads the pack, but other crit-heavy weapons like Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds and the Widsith are perfectly viable depending on availability. Kagura's Verity, Cashflow Supervision, and Skyward Atlas also offer strong passive stats if their effects don't go to waste. When it comes to artifacts, nothing beats 4-piece Long Night's Oath for its stacking plunge bonus, but 4-piece Obsidian Codex is a close second for players wanting more flexibility or who haven't finished farming her signature set. Mixes of Long Night and 2-piece Electro Damage or attack sets can bridge the gap. For main stats, prioritize Attack Set Sands, Electro Damage Goblet, and Crit Rate or Crit Damage Circlet with substats focusing on crit, attack, ER, and some elemental mastery. Flowing Purity stands as the top free-to-play weapon, giving players a reliable stat stick option with added utility. Talent-wise, normal attacks are the first to level since her plunge attacks scale off them directly. followed by Elemental Burst for big damage procs, and then her skill, which is more utility-driven but still important for uptime on Night Soul states. These 3 DPS characters are absolutely neck to neck in strength. Thanks for staying this far. Consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. And comment below if you can guess who the next top 3 characters. First up, we have Arlecchino, the Crimson Queen of Carnage, whose insane raw scalings and bond of life mechanics make her one of the most self-sufficient and powerful pyro main DPS units in the game, boasting a unique high-risk, high-reward playstyle that thrives with minimal healing support and massive front-loaded damage. Her best-in-slot weapon is Crimson Moon's Semblance, a polearm that not only grants her crit rate and a hefty attack stat, but also boosts her damage based on her bond of life percentage, making it synergize perfectly with her kit. For players without this weapon, alternatives like Staff of Homer, Primordial Jade Winged Spear, Deathmatch, or even the 3-star White Tassel still keep her competitive, with White Tassel serving as a surprisingly solid free-to-play choice. When it comes to artifacts, Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy is absolutely tailor-made for her, offering an almost permanent 54% damage boost due to how frequently her bond of life rises and falls during combat. And if you're still farming for it, sets like Echoes of an Offering or Gladiator's Finale work as respectable substitutes. In terms of main stats, you'll want attack cess on the Sands, pyro damage bonus on the Goblet, and crit rate or crit damage on the Circlet, with substats prioritizing crit, energy recharge, and attack. Talent-wise, focus on her normal attack first, since her entire kit is designed around empowering her standard combos, followed by her elemental skill, and then her burst. Arlecchino rewards aggressive play and quick decision-making, and with the right build, she becomes a relentless pyro menace who needs nothing but her polearm and a little bit of chaos to decimate anything in her path. Moving on to Mavuika, the blazing biker of Natlan, whose explosive duality between on-field carry and off-field pyro applicator makes her one of the most flexible and stylish DPS units of 5.6, capable of melting enemies whether she's zooming through the battlefield or dropping skill procs from the sidelines. If you're going full DPS, her best weapon is 1,000 Blazing Suns, which extends her buff duration and increases damage when in her Night Soul state. But if that's unavailable, Beacon of the Reed Sea, Serpent Spine, Wolf's Gravestone, or even the 4-star Mailed Flower and Tidal Shadow make excellent choices, with Earthshaker as a budget F2P pick. For artifact sets, 4-piece Obsidian Codex brings the heat for main DPS builds with its consistent damage amplification, while Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City is ideal for a sub-DPS approach if no one else on your team is using it. No matter the path you choose, run the standard attacks as Sands, Pyro Damage Bonus Goblet, and Crit Circlet, and seek substats like crit damage, crit rate, and elemental mastery to boost her efficiency. As for talents, on-field Mavuika should prioritize her elemental burst, followed by her skill, while off-field setups can level both simultaneously, skipping the normal attack entirely. Mavuika's ability to bypass energy recharge, scale brutally with investment, and fill nearly any pyro niche makes her a top-tier option who's just as dangerous on her motorcycle as she is off it. And finally, we have Neuvillette, the Hydro Judge, whose elegant yet devastating charged attacks define his powerhouse presence on any battlefield, channeling massive HP scaling damage in high-speed ticks that erase enemies with a flood of force. His best weapon is clearly Tome of the Eternal Flow, designed specifically to supercharge his HP-based kit while maintaining his uptime on charged attacks. But if you're looking for alternatives, Sacrificial Jade, Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds, or even Wave Riding Whirl do just fine. And if you're going the free-to-play route, Prototype Amber actually performs surprisingly well due to its HP bonuses and energy utility. Artifact-wise, Marechaussee Hunter is his best in slot by far, taking advantage of the HP fluctuation from his skill to convert it into massive crit rate and damage boosts, though Wanderer's Troop and Heart of Depth still remain viable if you prefer a more reaction-focused or consistent charged attack route. For stats, H% Sands and Goblet with Crit Circlet are the golden standard, and substats should push for H% crit values, energy recharge, and a little EM to help with reactions. Prioritize his normal attack talent first since it empowers his charged attacks, then focus on his elemental skill for generating source water droplets and reducing charge time. And finally, his elemental burst, which, while costly, contributes solidly to his overall output. Neuvillette's unique mix of scaling mechanics, massive AoE potential, and surprisingly fluid mobility makes him a top-tier DPS that floods the arena with style and overwhelming hydro power. And that wraps up the top 15 DPS characters in 5.6. Whether you're building your favorites or chasing the meta, these setups will carry hard. If this helped, drop a like, subscribe, and let me know who your main DPS is down in the comments. See you in the next one.